Hello everyone, welcome to Dan Potion Sports News. Today we're going to talk about Orion Facey and the work that he's doing on the internet as well as in real life, or what can be referred to as real life. Orion is someone that I've known for a while, especially on the internet. We first started talking to each other and talking about our practices and working together a few years ago, probably 2014. And since then we've built quite a strong friendship. But anyway, today I want to talk about Orion Facey TV, which is like a vlog that Orion was doing over last year. Also about vlogging in general and how that emerges in the world as a sport. And then also referred to as TV, which is The Virosexuals, which is Orion Facey's first novel, which we're going to publish under the 5 Dankly imprint this year, in the next month or two. So we've been working on editing that together, and it covers a lot of themes that impact on life, you know, in the present day, or ways that people can experience life, and they're explored through a future tech, queer, erotica narrative. I guess using fiction as a means to navigate life, which is something that we do automatically anyway. So I guess that is something that Orion's doing in their practice, like an intermediate life practice as well as a creative practice. So in the Orion Facey TV, she's kind of like exploring an array of life themes. Each episode has a different theme, just from a personal perspective, and I guess offering people a perspective that may or may not be available from other sources, which is what the purpose of vlogging is really. It's a way to like input into the pool of world media and information from a personal perspective, and anyone with a computer and an internet connection, or a phone and an internet connection, can do it. And everyone has their own personal perspective that they can input into that pool, regardless of how effectively they establish that personal perspective up against the kind of, I don't know, bureaucracy that underpins expression of identity in real life and on the internet. So also part of the purpose of Dan Potion Sports News is to create a space for people to enter that may or may not be available from other sources in real life or on the internet, which is actually what Dan Potion is about in general. It's about finding different ways to open and explore different spaces so that there are different options for people in the world, or to whatever extent people are engaged in the world. So that is also why we are looking at publishing Orion's book, or books, is because it opens up a space for people to reflect on reality from a different perspective, or whether or not there are similar perspectives available already. The more variety and variation of perspective, the more that people are able to find ways of expressing and engaging that suit them and their own experience of their personality, or what they feel fits their kind of personal perspective, which is kind of the overarching purpose of media in the first place. It's like a web that people can like assemble a reflection of their own sense of being or whatever. Whether or not people can do that and it being so oversaturated, I don't necessarily think that like the internet has really resolved much of that. It just has meant that people are more oversaturated with media and information. I mean, the options are more available, but it doesn't necessarily mean that people are able to find the things that benefit them. But there's still meaning in putting information and media out there, because people do tend to come across the things that they need to find in their life that make up the passage of their development or whatever. So part of what Orion is developing through different parts of their practice and different vehicles of engagement with reality is a language called Chisong, which is, under development by Orion, which explores different ways of relating to or using time to relate to reality. And rather than having any kind of linear experience of or representation of time in the grammar, it lays out a different map of time where people's relation to events and experiences are spatialized in a different way, and encourages people to relate more directly to the imagery of their experience rather than the temporalization or hierarchization of experiences in a linear time. And so it connects with the attitude of the Virosexuals, which is the novel that Orion's working on, but it gives people more of a practical means of engaging with their own experience, whereas the narrative form of the Virosexuals gives people more of a performed example of characters and events playing out in a way that diverges from standardized or historically dominant modes of representing experience and narrative. Even though it loosely sits on a more or less linear narrative, the experiences of especially the main character, diverge from that. And the temporality of the events doesn't matter so much as the dissolving of the temporality or the dissolving of the structure of experience or the structures imposed on experience like space and time. And that is partly represented through the future setting, which uses technology as a way that people are also separated from the body and from each other. So their experience is always already mediated by patterns and purposes that come from outside their own purposes and experiences, or their own personal narrative or engagements with reality. So technology and communication and sex and drugs are kind of just melded into a pool of tools for navigating or distorting experience or manipulating it in different ways as a way to question how identity is constructed, whether in the future or in the present or whatever. Actually, I don't know how much Orion has talked about Chisong, the language, or about the book in her own Orion Facey TV, the vlogs, but the development of the language is something that is gonna kind of become more of a public project over the next year as well through Damp Ocean projects. And the Orion Facey TV might be something that becomes a bit more integrated with Damp Ocean as well. And they're all things that people are able to engage with relatively freely through the internet or through different forms of media. So they're things that are open to input and engagement from other people, or manipulation or alteration by different kinds of experiences, because they're not bound by kind of a dominant narrative in the first place. They're more like clouds or fluid arrangements of content that can adapt and attach to whatever or whoever's input that they're contextualized by. So I'm interested for people to like have the opportunity to engage with them more, and I hope that people keep an eye out for Orion's output over the next year, and for the projects that Dan Potion is going to be working on. We're going to hopefully have a lot of different approaches and different forms that our projects emerge in, including Dan Potion Sports Views, all the latest gameplay, and also slow motion replay. There are many different kinds of games in the world, and we're all playing games.